Hi everyone, this is Gayatri. I'm Program Director in Multi Arts. Am I audible to you? Can you type S in the chat box? Actually, my network is not good. I'm not visible. Unable to on the video. Okay. Okay, thank you. As a part of outreach program, we are conducting every Saturday in month or first Saturday or second Saturday. We are conducting Target 100 session in this. A part of in this previously we have conducted recording health and communication skills and so many things. But now we have the guest Miss Afshan. She is associate consultant in Infosys, and she came to explain you things technology in HR. Ma'am, a warm welcome to you. All of you type W in the chat box to welcome ma'am. Hearty welcome from Multi Arts, ma'am. You can unmute yourself, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
I'm not able to turn on my video.
Okay, fine, ma'am. No problem.
Okay, thank you very much for the warm welcome. And I see we have two guests over here. I would firstly like to know about the guests. Who am I speaking with? Are you employees or students? Because I cannot see you and I cannot make out anything. I have a power cut over here, because of which my video might be a little bit.
Ma'am, they will join later.
All right, all right. So I'll share my screen and then we can proceed. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
So as already mentioned by Gayatri, I'll be talking about the use of technology in HR. So before we begin with the topic, I would like to know what everybody thinks about the work an HR does. Any inputs from the students that I have over here? What do you think an HR does? Please let this be an interactive session.
Yeah, okay. You can unmute yourself or you can type the answer in the chat box also, no problem.
Okay, I guess people are a bit hesitant. Okay, I'll proceed with it anyway. So there are a lot of taboos about the work that an HR does in general. That they are only here for taking attendance or managing the payments of people and all such things. But I will talk to you about the intervention that technology has brought in the work styles of an HR over the century, and how it has evolved and developed and changed with the industries that we have seen over the past 50, 60 years. So this is the agenda for my today's discussion. I thought it could be a discussion, but I see that the audience are a bit hesitant. So let's make it a talk, and then post, probably I'll speak for some 15-20 minutes, and then we can have a Q&A session. Not just on the topic, if the audience have other inquisitive thoughts about the field, then they can talk to me about that, and I'll be very happy to answer. So I'll begin with the history of HR. So the need for an HR was felt around the late 1870s. That is when proper employment had begun. This was the colonial period during the British Raj, and before this, everybody was involved in their own businesses and employing only few laborers for their regular operations of their business. But during this time, the businesses started developing on a large scale. So they had become scalable in employing more than 15 to 20 people. And that was when the need of a person who would engage all these people, who would take care of their regular course was felt. And that is where the requirement of an HR was felt. So initially we have we say that HR has developed over generations. So the first gen HR was only taking attendance and payments. So let's say there's a small scale business and there are some 15 to 20 people coming in as employees and working over there. So the HR work at that business unit would be taking the attendance of the people, and as per the attendance, the wages would be paid. So in today's age, we have the concept of salary. However, during the 1800s, we had the concept of wages, and the payments were made every day at the end of the day while the shifts ended. So the first gen HR was involved in that. As time progressed, the industry started becoming like they started expanding their business, and they started becoming visible on a scalable limit. So then what happened? People started recruiting people from all around, not just if you have a small business and then you are supplying goods to the nearby village or city. Then you need people in the logistics department, you need people in the shops or shop floors that you have on the other side. Let's say we have a manufacturing unit in the city, and then you have a shop or a retail vendor in another city. So you need people at all these facilities, and that's when the recruitment started, and the HR developed its skills and started working on attendance payments and also on recruitment. So when we come to recruitment, the HR has to know the work functionality of that particular job. Only then the HR will be able to interview candidates and then recruit them. Let's say I'm recruiting for an engineering firm, and I do not know anything about what the job is about, what the skills that are required for working in that company. And what kind of prospectus does the company look forward to. So if we don't know all these things, then who am I going to recruit? I'll be blank. So the HR people evolved and developed their skills, and then they went into recruitment. Now, once the recruitment has happened, people have started coming, they're working for your company, and then at some point of time, the employee as well as the employer will start feeling that their work has become mundane. It is monotonous, and they don't feel any excitement in doing their work. That is where the learning and development part comes in. So what happens there is your skill is polished further. Your skill is developed. You are given even more resources to improve as well as to expand your horizons of the skill. Let's say you are a blacksmith. Let's say you are a company that is manufacturing handmade iron products, and you are employing a lot of blacksmiths. So in that case, a blacksmith who is already having some skill would be employed at your place. Now let's say there's a requirement, there's a customer who wants a special kind of instrument to be made. And for that, you will obviously choose the best of the blacksmith that you have. Now, what if these requests start pouring in from the customers? You need more and more blacksmiths who are skilled at that particular, at making that particular equipment. So you start teaching them, you start giving them classes or courses so that they can improve on their skill and polish it further. So that is where the learning and development comes in. So if we see, if we compare that to a modern day example, let's take the IT industry. So we know that technology keeps changing every day. We cannot be stuck to one particular technology and say that I've mastered this, so I'll stay with this and I'll progress. That is not going to happen. Since you're working for an employer, the employer is going to move ahead with the new technology that is coming in market, and it is up to you to learn and improve yourself so that you fulfill the requirements of the customer. And for that, it's not like that the employee has the whole onus on himself or herself to develop themselves. The employer is going to provide them with the courses, they are going to provide them with the classroom courses, online courses, on the field, hands-on experience courses, everything. So all these come under the learning and development. Then next we have separation. At one point of time, the employee is going to leave your organization. This could be because of old age, that is they retire. This could be because of demise. This could also be because the employee is not happy with the employer. So in this case of separation, we try to find out what the employee is expecting from the organization that we could not provide, because of which they're leaving. In most of the cases, just a minute, I'm getting a call. I'm sorry about that. So in most of the cases, the reason for separation could be monetary benefits. So if another organization is paying you a lot of money, then you're bound to leave us and go to another organization, right? So, but a lot of studies by Gartner have shown that up to 20% of employees leave the organization because of a bad boss or a working culture that they did not like, or something like not having enough opportunities in the work environment. And also a major reason is that they are not getting enough things to learn. So they, once their job becomes monotonous, they want something new, they want some excitement, and they leave the organization. So HR has evolved through these stages, and current day conventional HR works on all these four blocks, and that is how the organizational HR works. So moving ahead, what else does an HR do? So who is recruited as an HR? We have sometimes we have legal issues also. Let's say there's a feud between two employees, or an employer and an employee, or let's say a customer and an employee. So who solves this? We need a lawyer for that. So we have HRs who are lawyers who possess the knowledge of legal terms of that particular state or country, and then they help in resolving the issue. So since the law differs for different countries, we have lawyers of that particular country working in the HR department for the legal issues. We also have HR analytics. Like I explained in the previous slide, the reasons for separation are analyzed, the reasons are recorded, they are analyzed, and it is understood as to what is the main reason for one particular organization for where the employees are leaving. So there's the term used for this is attrition. In the news also these days we are seeing that a lot of attrition is being seen in the IT industry giants of the country like Cognizant and Infosys. So the organizations would be using their analytics to find out why the employees are leaving, and specifically in this particular region, this particular time of the year. So all this can be worked out in analytics. I'm giving this example of separation, but a lot of other things can also be done under analytics. Like you have what kind of softwares are the clients preferring? Let's say clients are preferring SAP software, so we would like to train our new employees in SAP because we are getting more and more projects on that particular tool. So we would train our employees on that particular tool so that we are never in short of resources whenever a client comes up to us and says, hey, I want something like this. Can you make this for me? And so analytics can be used over there as well. There are a lot of examples. Actually, we can apply analytics to almost anything that an employee does in their daily life at the organization. Next, we have employee engagement. Now, a huge taboo about this that many people have is that engaging an employee is all fun and games and everything, and HRs, they arrange games and competitions, and that's it. But it's not like that. So, employee engagement is something that is present at every point of the life cycle of an employee with the organization. Let's say someone has been recruited. So you need to have a person, you need to have a point of contact in the organization to whom you can go up to and ask your doubts because you're new to the company. Let's say you have a lot of enthusiasm and you do some certification courses. Now you want these courses to be showcased to the higher management so that you can be promoted. You need some engagement over there from the HR so that all these things are showcased. Let's say an employee is leaving the organization. At that point of time also you need to have an HR who needs to engage with you and fulfill all the final documentation process. Even in case of demise of an employee or other issues like demise of family member of an employee, welfare and all such things that are provided by the organization, these are taken care by the HR and this comes under employee engagement. Now we have business development also, the last part. This business development goes in sync with strategy of the organization. So how a company wants to build its operations. If we have a manufacturing firm, their business development strategy would be to go and get more and more, projects from other companies to whom these people act as ancillaries. Let's say we have an aircraft making company and you are a forging unit. So you will be forging the equipment that the aircraft manufacturing company needs. So you are an ancillary to them. Let's say there's a company that needs some HR tool so that they can use it for their analytics. So you create the tool, you develop it and you deploy it on their server and you give it. So that is your business development. How you strategize, how you bring in clients, all that comes under business development. So now moving ahead, how innovation in HR has progressed over the past 50 years. So I've taken these stats from McKinsey and Gartner. The numbers are available on the internet. They are not produced by me. So 45% of the innovation that happened in HR was during the industrialization era. This is when large scale companies started coming up after World War II. And there was huge industrialization. There was a lot of need for recruitment. That was the first part that HR was involved in, apart from attendance and payments, like I mentioned in the first slide before this. So along with this, during the industrialization period, there was also a lot of insights into robotics. So that takes us into the next step where modern industries and robotics started coming. So the students here who are in electronics and communication and also probably in mechanical would be knowing about embedded systems and robotics. So although the involvement of HR is minimal over here, because a lot of industries in our country have not yet accepted that. Only if you go for small scale manufacturing units, then you would be seeing human beings working over there. But if you go to a plant like Ford, or if you go to Maruti Suzuki plant, you'll be seeing robotic arms working over there and doing 10 times the work a human can do. So all of this has improved as, HR has improved as these innovations started coming into our lives. Next is strategic development. Like I said before, business development and strategic development go hand in hand. Hand in hand. So how the strategy of a company is defined is that you you take in the requirements that you get, that are pouring in from your clients, and as per that you strategize how you want to mend your operations in the next couple of years. And in case the scenario changes, like we entered the pandemic, so the strategy of most of the companies was to let go of their employees who were not giving them any profits. Another strategy now that the employers we have in the country from them, what we are seeing is that they are also recruiting in large number. So the strategy is of most of the companies is always profit making, but it's up to the employee to see that they are in good terms and having a lot of skill with them. Now how does the skill come? From the learning and development that is provided earlier. So as we entered the pandemic stage, the strategy of a lot of companies also changed. If you go and check in the banking sector, not just IT, if you see the banking sector, then the moratorium period was provided by the government of India. We also saw that a lot of people lost their job, because of which whoever was paying EMIs was not able to pay back, and the banking sector was falling down. So their strategy is shaped as per the scenario that the country, or the, in this case, the global industries are in. We can also see this in the manufacturing industry, where obviously work from home is not possible. So their strategy would be to take in projects that are mostly designing and not actually implementing. The next we have is about 10% of 10% of roles are in strategy. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I had some glitch, because of which my voice was not going through. So, all right. So the niche work area that we're seeing in HR is the consultants today. So what do the consultants do? Let's say a person has some technical background, and then they go into the management field, and then they learn that various aspects of HR. Now what they can do is go to a technical firm, because this person has a technical background. They can get employed in a technical firm. And if you have a client, let's say you're a consultant with a firm, and that firm has another client. Now, the consultant is going to talk to the client and discuss a lot of features about the product that the client wants from the firm. So I'll give you an example. Let's say A is the company that is providing the product, and I'm the consultant at company A. Now company B comes to company A and says, hey, I want something like this. Can you customize this? My employees want this and that, and I want all these features to be there in the product. So who do you think is going to talk to that client? The consultants do that, because they have technical knowledge. They'll be able to understand the requirements that company B is asking for. Also, since they are in the HR domain, they'll also be able to negotiate how much is to be charged, how many employees are required for that project, whether we have that particular skilled employees at our with company A or not, whether we need to employ someone from outside, or we need to take someone from within the company from another team if someone has that skill. Or do we need to provide a short training, like 2-3 weeks training to the existing employees and then put them on the project so that they prepare the product for company B? So this is what the consultant does. It is a multifaceted job. They need to have multiple backgrounds. So a person having technical background can be an HR. A person having non-technical background can also be an HR, but the job roles are going to differ. So consultancy is the niche in any kind of field that you come across today, because they are multifaceted, and it actually reduces the number of employees that a firm has. So in case the employer is not having a consultant, they will be sending one HR, one finance person, one marketing person, and maybe one technical person also to the client to find out what he actually wants, how many people are required, how much to charge, and how they're going to put the product in the market so that other people also buy. But a consultant would be having knowledge of all these domains. Specifically, a business person would be having a knowledge of all these domains, along with some background in technical aspects, probably an engineer, probably an MCA or BCA. So that is why this field is the niche. Now, moving ahead to the technology interventions that have been brought in the field of HR. So the bottom line over here would be technology has always worked towards improving the work efficiency. They have always made use of the latest technology available so that the process is smooth and reduces the menial labor that a human does. It has also changed the type of work that an HR is doing. Like I have been discussing till now, it started from very basic work of giving out payments to actually strategizing and talking to the clients about what they want from the company. Now, a few technology interventions that we have today is artificial intelligence. So we have always there's always a demand and supply gap in any kind of operations that you see in businesses. So send out surveys. You try to find out from the employees that are existing with your company, and you with the help of analytics, you find out what kind of work the employee is looking for, and you redesign your structure as per that. Then we have self-service technologies. So the HR is not going to be available everywhere for the employee. Sometimes what happens is the employee goes to their manager and asks for certain helps, that maybe tagging them to certain skills, providing them with the POCs, so, point of contact you can go and talk to for certain certifications and all such things. So self-service technologies like PeopleSoft is also available with a lot of companies. HCM is available. So what happens here is the employee has everything available on their dashboard when they log into their company's portal, and they can, as per their will and wish, they can check into those services and find out what they need, what they want for their upskilling and development. We also have HCM Tech. So initially we used to fill in forms whenever we had to, employment at a particular organization. But these days we fill in online forms, and all this data stays with the company. And is how the employment has been prolonging. Now, since all your data is available with the company has to maintain some privacy to your data also. Now, name, address, all such things are also a huge thing when you go for data privacy. But when there are certain fields like PAN card, your phone number, your bank account details, all this data is available with your organization, and this has to be maintained with utmost secrecy, so that there's no negative usage of these things from hackers. So moving ahead to the, I think this is the last slide. So moving ahead to the skills that are required in today's world in order to pass through the HR round of any organization. So you have HRIS softwares, you have social media platforms, talent acquisition and talent management softwares. So these softwares, what they do is they allow an employee to post simultaneously on multiple social media, so that people are made aware of any kind of upcoming job requirement or employment opportunity that the organization has. Now, HRIS software, what it does, it takes in all the data that the candidates who are enrolling for the company are giving in, and it stores it in its cloud. Then you have talent acquisition and management software. So let's say we have this Naukri.com site or LinkedIn site. So you can search with the keywords. Let's say you're searching for a job in accounts department. So you can type for chartered accountants, or you can type out billing desk or such things as the keywords, and then as per the keywords, the either the employers can pass the resumes that the employers have sent, or the employer or the candidate can search for employers who are having jobs in such domains. So these two softwares are helpful in that. Then you have cloud technology. Everything is moving to cloud so that it's available everywhere. Now you upload your documents into Google Drive and you can log into your account and see it anywhere at any time. This is because of cloud technology. So almost all organizations are adapting to it so that people can upload their their certificates or their documents or all such things. They can access their mail or clients data wherever they are. Now work from home has been made possible because of the availability of cloud technology. You have the last one we have here is gamification techniques. So what this actually is, you are put in a game along with a lot of other people. All these people are competing for a few roles in the company. So what the HR does is they check how your team, how your bonding with the team is, what kind of suggestions you're providing in the team, whether you're leading them or whether you're contributing as a team member. All these things are checked in gamification techniques, and that's how you can be employed and put in proper roles in the company. So that's all about my today's talk on technology interventions in HR. So this is my email ID, and you can ask me your doubts, or you can write to me if you want any more insights on this. I'm stopping my screen share so we can have a Q&A session if anybody has doubts.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Thank you so much. If anyone have doubts or anything, you can ask her, because her bandwidth is low. So
yeah, I stopped my video because of that, so that I don't lose out.
yeah. Veena ma'am also there. Ma'am, can you talk some words?
Hi Veena, how are you doing?
Yeah, hi. It was a nice session. Thanks a lot for accepting the invitation and sharing the knowledge in MultiArts platform. And yeah, if you people have any doubts, you can just ask her directly. And one of the advantage, if you people know how HR thinks and what are the criteria they have in the process of recruitment, it will be very helpful for you. And you people can directly contact her through mail if you have any queries and all. So before that, if you have any questions, you can just ask her and she'll give her best.
Yeah, not just about the topic that I discussed today. You can ask me any other doubts that you have in any kind of HR process also. I guess we have about 12-13 minutes now, so we can use that time for this. I've also typed out my email ID in the chat, so if you want any more further insights, you can write to me and I'll be sure to respond.
Yeah. So any queries from anyone? And not only that, I just want to tell one more thing. This particular session is also available in the YouTube. You people can look over there. And if you have any queries in the recorded version as well, you can directly contact the mail where she just mentioned on the screen. So it was a nice session, Afshan. Thanks a lot for accepting the invitation.
Thank you very much for calling me. I hope it was informative and not very boring, because initially I wanted it to be interactive, but the audience were a little bit hesitant, so I continued with the topic that I have.
Yeah, we have students in the call right now. Maybe they are a little bit.
Yeah, these people will be going ahead for interviews soon. So if they have any doubts about that, also is fine.
So I have a doubt. I mean, the doubt whenever I used to go to the college, they used to ask me, what are the points HR will see whenever they want to recruit a fresher?
A fresher is someone who has just come out of college and they know only the theoretical subjects that they have in their books. So what an HR sees is the candidate ready to adapt to a new culture that they are going into the company, and whether the candidate is ready to learn new things. So we see that tech giants are employing people from all domains, whether it is sciences, engineering, all backgrounds they're employing. So a person, if you're not from the computer science or BCA and computer applications, that domain, or anything IT related, then the HR is going to look for someone who is ready to adapt to a new culture, ready to learn new skills, ready to accept things as they come in their face. Because a lot of people do is, no, they nag, and I'm not ready for this, I'm not meant for this. Not having such an attitude, having a learning kind of attitude, and going with an open mind. That is the first thing that the HR looks for. Even if you're having some 9-point CGPA in your particular subject, but you don't have the attitude to learn something new, then they are not going to employ you.
Okay, like the question may be relevant to the audience right now. They want to speak, but they have a huge fear to speak and to ask anything directly in the process of interview, even though they are not.
I'm a human like you also. You don't have to worry about anything. And I'm not an old lady. I just, I'm around 27. I'm a few years older than you. That's all. So you don't have to worry about anything.
Okay. So one more question is, how to get rid of fear in the process of interview? I mean, how to make an impression in that process?
There's no one go get it rule for this. Different people, opt for different ways to, get rid of their fear. What I did during my first interviews was that I'm not going to meet this person again. This person is not my relative. They don't live next to me. So it doesn't matter what I talk to them. I'm going to ask whatever I want to know about the company, and I'm going to tell whatever I feel is the correct answer for their question. So I answered whatever I knew relevant to the question that they asked. Obviously, if they ask me about something technical, I shouldn't be telling them Ramayana and Mahabharata. So obviously, relevant things I answered. I also asked them questions about how my future is going to be with the company. Let's say, like, the next 3 years in the company, how is it going to be? I was being inquisitive. So, in almost all your trainings, in the placement trainings that the college gives you, they tell you not to treat the HR or the interviewer as a friend. But we like people who are enthusiastic and they speak to us very very openly, and they are enthusiastic to know about the company as well as to tell us about themselves. So you speak to us like a friend. So that's the key to it.
Okay, like we have 2 more questions from the audience. They asked it in the chat box.
Yes, I'm seeing.
Let me read that.
What are posters?
What are the posters HR checks?
HR checks in which field? In recruitment or after joining the company, or what kind?
I think so, Nandu. You just need to elaborate your question. I mean, is it fake or real? They will observe in body language.
Body language. Well, currently they cannot see anything because interviews are online. If you are having an offline interview facing the HR directly, the more you shake your hands, the more they feel that you're tensed or nervous or overbearing and dominating. So observing a lot of body language is also not in the hands of the HR. We go through like hundreds of people every day, and observing everybody and remembering and then deciding is not possible. Yes, of course, a few HRs see it, but it's not true for everybody. Just stay calm, put your hands on your legs, let your face do the talking, let your eyes be expressive. That much should be enough. You don't have to move around your hands a lot. I hope that answers. And then we also have
So the one
must as a fresher to get job. Is that a statement or a question? I'm not clear.
I mean, it's a question: is communication is must and should to get a job for a fresher? I think so. It's a question.
If you're not good with English, then you can speak to the HR or the interview person in the language that you're comfortable with. But express. Communication is all about expressing what you know, what you want to know, and all such things. So unless you tell them and keep a blank face over there, just show them your certificates, they are not going to understand whether you're capable for the job or not. Well, communication, English is just a means of communication. So whatever it is, you need to express. Whether it is broken English, whether it is your own language, or whether it is a proper good English, you need to express what you know. You need to express what you have in your aspirations. So communication is definitely required not just for a fresher, for anybody who's looking for a job, or for anybody who is working in a company. You need to talk to your manager, you need to talk to your subordinates, you need to talk to your client also. How will the other person, they cannot look into your brain and find out what you're thinking. So it is required, definitely.
So I have one more question. If the student is if the fresher or the student is not comfortable in English, and the interviewer don't know any other language, I mean only English, the interviewer only English, but the student don't know English, how they need to manage and how they need to learn? Any tips?
Well, the tips would be, if the interviewer does not know any other language, then you're not comfortable in English, but it's not like you don't know English at all. So you can start with a disclaimer. You can say that I'm not very good at English, but I'm very good at so and so. So give the disclaimer that I'm good with these technical skills, or I'm good with these my creative skills, or I have lateral thinking, or I have good management skills. You give the disclaimer, and then however you can express in the broken English that it is best that you have the keywords in your head. You can let's say you're talking about few technologies that you can have the keywords about those technologies and speak the way you can. You can be expressive with your hands at that point of time. So that's what I would tell you.
Yeah, I think so. I have the last question. The question is, the HR can find if the person is getting up with a fake resume like that, without any sort of knowledge. He's just dumping all the skills, whatever they have, into the resume. Do the HR find that?
Not always. Not always. So there's a saying that you need to be smart even to lie. So let's say you don't know one particular thing, what can I say? Let's say there's a project that you haven't worked on. You were just a spectator. You just saw how it is being done. You did not work on it. But on your resume, you lied about it utterly, and you said that I worked on this, so and so, I did this, that, everything. So obviously the HR is going to have a glance at your resume and they might ask you what you did. So the tip that I would give you is learn about it before you go to the interview, and be honest with your answers. Whatever you have learned, you're going to answer over there. It is always the best option to not lie on your resume, of course, but it's not ethical to lie on your resume. And if you have done it, or if you know someone who is going to do it, it is best that you learn about what you're writing. So in some way or the other, you're learning about it. But yes, the HR might find out. The interviewer will find out because they are much more knowledgeable than you. In case you're a fresher, I'm sorry. If you are a lateral joinee coming from another company, then this statement doesn't hold true.
Okay, so yeah, any other questions from audience, you can just put on the chat box like you done before, and just reply how you felt about the session with the lots and lots of thank yous in the chat box to Afshan. Okay.
I think Nandu's question is left unanswered. What are posters, HR checks? So
Yeah, I think so. He just elaborated in the down, like, is it fake or real? They will observe body language. I think so. The resume question will fit into
already it's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. So you can just reply how you felt about the session with lots of thank yous, and thank you from my end as well again, Afshan, for taking the session. It was a great interaction. I'm really looking forward to have this type of sessions whenever you are available.
Thank you very much, Meena. Thank you.
About body postures, like body language. Nandu is asking about a body language.
Okay. Hi, Nandu. I'm a technical HR. I'm not well versed with body postures and the science behind it. I'm sorry, I will not be able to answer you on this because I don't have full knowledge on it. Unless